This is the Free Zone Communiqué, transmitting from Virginia's unoccupied sector. If you think smart cities, DEI, censorship, government intrusion, bug paste, and other left-wing nonsense are no longer a possibility, think again. We've won one election with slim majorities. Our work to rebuild a free and sane America has just begun.
This is the Free Zone Communique on the P4B. I'm your host, the irksome, if insidious, Matt Jordan. Today is episode 13. We're talking about the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. Today is the Doge machine, tariff talk, national security, and illegals. And first, the poor wretched souls. In a few early posts and in my book, I said if anyone actually made an attempt to truly shrink the federal monster, the media would immediately go out and find the youngest, most relatable fireys they possibly can and splash their faces on TV. Oh, cry for me. And so it has come to pass.
People are really scared. I think that 12 days ago, people knew where their next paycheck was coming from. They knew how they were going to pay for their kids' daycare, their medical bills, and then all gone overnight.
All gone overnight for Christina Dry and Adam Dubard, fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of foreign aid distributed by the U.S. Agency for International Development.
It's worth noting the woman in the video, Christine Dry, was the speechwriter for the head of USAID, Samantha Powers. Both of the sad victims here will walk away with 8 months severance, including benefits. There is no, quote, gone overnight, quote, about their situation. Talking about their next goddamn meal, that's pathetic. Dry was on camera a few days before talking about how they hid their pride flags and other lefty stuff and turned off the news in the break room. Was this intended to deceive the auditors? Did they want anyone looking at USAID to think that they weren't who they actually are? If you think you have to do this, perhaps you're in the wrong line of work anyway.
Our mission continues in a moment.
Poe River, it's not just shopping, it's an experience and an excellent place to find great gifts. Visit poeriver.etsy.com today and find something you'll love.
As many on the left have complained, the changes and pursuits coming out of the White House are coming at us as if through a fire hose. Here's the good part. It has corrupt, permanent governing class people in blind panic. They can almost taste the pending exposure they face. I sell a couple of t-shirts and sweatshirts that say, "Your politicians don't fear you. Teach them to." And the lessons have begun. Nothing out of D.C. has given me so much joy since Newt dragged B.J. Bill to the table to sign Newt's welfare to work bill. And not for nothing, but those shirts come in assorted sizes and colors. I'll just say it. But there is a price to be paid for the headlong rush the administration is making to get the upper hand on Dems and rhinos. We on the right, who may support Trump's basic ideas, have little time or opportunity to view what is happening with a critical eye. There's no channel to say, well, maybe this or that item might not be a good idea. For example, tariffs. As a threat, and because everyone has to assume Trump will pull the trigger, negotiating partners must assume he means business and deal with Trump as they've never had to deal with previous presidents. Trump isn't in the genteel international cocktail party club. And as evidenced by J.D. Vance's tongue lashing of the Europeans, DJT doesn't care if he is ever invited in. His primary responsibility is to the United States, not the EU, not NATO, not Canada, Mexico, or Japan, not even Israel. He cares about our interests, whether you like him or not. Knowing he will not waver on this and threatened with crippling tariffs, trading partners have come to the table offering deals they would never dream of offering a Biden or an Obama or even a W. And that just becomes the starting point for negotiation. And even if they go along a little bit with the Donald, there's no guarantee that they will be spared the tariff slam. So, as an attitude adjuster, the very real threat of tariffs is good. I am actually entirely against actually dropping the tariff hammers. Since the Gilded Age, when there were only 4 or 5 powerful industrialized nations on the planet, no tariff scheme ever worked out for either party involved. That said, the threat is there. And Trump knows if he doesn't follow through, target nations will immediately band together and go back to treating him like they did Biden. So, if the administration doesn't get its way, you can expect at least some tariff schemes to be launched. That means goods from those countries will become more dear, as my British friends like to say. Like Chilean black cherries will become a luxury of the well-off. The rest of us will have to get them in season domestically or hope there is another happy trading partner who grows them. And so it will be for all products and services. We will then find out how expensive our cherries, tomatoes, clothes, medicines, and the bottles they come in really are. And that won't be the result of inflation, here defined as devaluation of currency brought on by poor government monetary policy. The prices we'll see will be the result of market forces that should have been the driver of all prices all along. You see, tariffs, subsidies, duties, theirs and ours, are artificial implements to your commerce. If you need an aluminum tube and a guy in Germany makes one, you should be able to buy that at the going rate, not the subsidized rate created by the German government or the tariff rate by ours. These are tools of politics and cronyism. They help no one but the governing class and the cronies. They don't help you. So, your best hope is this, that foreign trading partners see the wisdom of not trying Trump's patience, not forcing him to pull the trigger. The more countries that see that, the less disruption for everyone and the more free trade for all. That said, every single item Trump and Musk are going after right now has the potential of cutting the economy loose to see immense growth. But it will all come with growing pains, and you will have to be strong. If you want all the good stuff without enduring the pains, you won't get all the good stuff. And you won't deserve it, because you are hereby warned. It's hard to perceive, but we, the planet, are in a broad decline right now. 2019 was the zenith of post-World War II world order. The old ways of doing business are going away. Partly that's because our populations are shrinking and aging. In part it is because the U.S. has neglected its duties to keep the sea lanes open for commerce, at least partially. For now, trade still moves at almost the rate it had before. But there are countries making trade more difficult than it needs to be. Canadian subsidies and tariffs protect cronies and feed the government. They'd be dead already if they didn't. They won't be able to continue the subsidies indefinitely. Trump doesn't want a tariff war as a policy with Canada. He wants a level playing field and more help from Canada at the border. If the playing field were indeed leveled, we'd swallow Canada's economy whole. Then talk of a 51st state would be academic. They would become just that. Even if they kept the theater of governance, they'd be utterly dependent on us for more than just a nuclear umbrella. Either way, tariffs, no tariffs, it's all a wash. But the threat is real, and Canada came to the table. Mexico is on stronger economic legs, but they are a criminal nightmare. They're also too cozy with the Chi-Coms for DJTs or my liking. Again, there is the threat of tariffs as a management tool. Mexico came to the table. With China, it appears Trump is going straight to the mattresses with tariffs. Why not? They are protectionist as hell, right? Friedman, Sol, Hazlitt would disabuse us of that attitude in a few sentences. But Trump sees an opportunity, and here is where I believe that more input from the supporters would be helpful. I have frequently characterized China's economy as an 18-pound bowling ball standing on a few toothpicks. Is Trump planning on flicking those toothpicks away? It would seem so. And here's where some of the requisite pain I mentioned would really come into play. The Donald could wreck China overnight. He could slap tariffs, ban subsidized products, basically everything China makes, and make outrageous demands. That's typically his opening gambit. But if we haven't onshored or nearshored all the productions, like steps in cell phone production or cheap everyday goods, medicines, the bottles they come in, and much more, then you'll really know how expensive your shit can be. It's more involved than even this. Even unintended consequences of tariffs will cause problems. For example, freed up from foreign competition, what do the domestic providers do with their prices? If they're stupid, and they were last time, they'll raise their prices to just shy of foreign products that we tariff. I said unintended, not unforeseen. I'm betting on domestic producers being short-sighted. And there are many more issues that Trump has his eye on, and some he doesn't. We'll deal with them in the future episodes. In fact, I've addressed all of them at one time or another over the last 10 years.
Stand by. More to follow.
So what else is hiding the cost of living? Illegal immigration is a big one. I'd be happy to see every last illegal ejected from the United States. It would make room for those who have been trying to get here legally, following the rules, and who have more to offer the economy. But that comes at a cost as well. By following the law and sending these people home, we will find out how much a tomato, lawn care, or drywall installation costs in this country. This isn't an evil thing. It's the correct thing. In our present economy, a domestic vegetable costs X. In an honest, ethical economy, that same veggie will cost X plus the difference required to pay domestic labor. In a moment of ill-conceived honesty in September of 22, the wretched Nancy Pelosi said the quiet part out loud.
We have a shortage of workers in our country, and you see even in Florida, some of the farmers and the growers saying, why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops down here.
And scolding DeSantis over the shipment of illegals to Martha's Vineyard, a funny sitcom even in reruns, Pelosi said, we need the migrants down south to pick the crops. Are you starting to get it? Slave wage laborers and stealth voters. That is all the Dems and rhinos owned by the Chamber of Commerce back home have ever cared about where illegals are concerned. If we are a society of laws, we will send these people home. Violent criminals first, and then the rest with each encounter. But between that and tariffs, just to name two, we will find out how much everything really costs. It won't interfere with growth and prosperity, but there will be an adjustment. Be ready and don't jump ship at the first breeze. Transparency. The left is notorious for lying about the reality staring us straight in the face. This is especially true of what they've been saying about Doge. They frequently accuse Doge of operating in secret, hiding their plans, working in the dark. That, as usual, is a lie, a big one. I've never in my life witnessed a president as open and available to the media as Donald Trump. We have almost real-time knowledge of what he is thinking and doing. And even that pales in comparison to what Musk is doing with Doge. He announces daily what he is doing and what he plans to do. He even gives ample heads up to his next target to be audited. It's no joke that delete buttons and shredder blades across the federal government are being worn to a nub. But I know, you know, and they know what's coming every day. Musk calls his shots on social media and on a dedicated website. I'll leave a link. He even creates videos informing foreign governments what the Trump administration is doing and plans to do. There has never, ever been an activity more transparent in the history of the U.S. government, perhaps any government. But Elon's not elected. He's a dictator. Well, Harry Hopkins was not elected. He was FDR's brain. He was involved in everything, including economic planning, spy operations, the economy, and the spot price of gold. Nothing at the top of the executive branch got done without his say-so. The criminal crew Obama worked the smash and grab schemes with were not elected, but they had a profound effect on the economy, were completely illegal and unethical, and everything they did was done for personal gain and in complete secrecy. The fact is, there have been armies of unelected advisors and brain trusts marching through the White House since the first Washington administration. Some were ethical, some had a very narrow portfolio. I suspect many were arms of corruption, as we saw in the Obama and Biden White Houses. Not only that, Elon was next to Trump in the closing months of the election, with Trump saying Musk was coming along to do exactly what he is doing right now. In Musk's case, it cannot be legitimately argued that the voters didn't demand Doge. It was advertised, and we did demand exactly that, among other things, from Trump. Further, Musk has no authority to do anything. He reviews and reports. Trump decides, and department heads or acting heads carry out the remedies. Right now, Elon has Donald's trust. For as long as that lasts, his recommendations will carry tremendous weight, like Harry Hopkins did with FDR. But from whence cometh the authority to appoint Elon to the long overdue task of hopefully reducing and slashing the size of government? Well, the idea came from a program created by an executive order issued by B.J. Bill, to wit.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
I've read it, and where it says the president should, the president will.
Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
And the president did. Not much. Clinton wasn't the bureaucracy shredder he said he'd be. That was fluff for domestic consumption to make you think Clinton gave half a shit about responsible government. But he did a lot using his executive power. We'll discuss the breadth of that power in just a bit. And the backbone of Doge, in reality, is the United States Digital Service, created by an Obama royal fiat. He too promised to reduce the size of government. That didn't happen.
One of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. We thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small, in a systematic way.
So with all the wailing and gnashing of teeth over Doge, if there were a sliver of honesty to it, the question would have been raised years or even decades ago. The media and silly morons in Congress crying about executive overreach rings hollow. Still, there is a question about the power the executive does hold and how they got it. I've touched on this before. We have long since perverted the concept of our government given to us by the Constitution. Over time, especially after FDR got his greasy meat hooks into our government and our economy, Congress has gotten fat and lazy. They are supposed to provide the oversight of the executive branch, not some of it, not sometimes. And that takes work. Instead, Congress, by the way it constructs laws, has ceded more power to the White House with every bill it writes. Intentionally, Byzantine, lawyerly, the bills repeatedly leave almost every aspect of execution up to the department involved. Quote, the department shall have the discretion to. Quote, an agency can do this or add that. This creates more regulators who assume the power to further legislate from their desk. With every law passed, with every law changed or improved, more of these unelected manipulators are employed. That's how the government grows so big. Congress doesn't care, except for the occasional oversight hearings, which are 99% theater. The law is passed. Congress wipes its hands of the issue. So if there is any honesty in the swamp, if Congress is really interested in arresting executive power, it has to do some real work, multi-year work. Congress has to rewrite the federal code, and it would be done under the Jefferson model. He said, I'm paraphrasing, a law should be written on one sheet of paper. It should be simple enough for an average man to read and understand it while running. These laws should leave as little discretion as possible to regulators. Certainly no regulator should have the power to expand or contract the law. We could fire half the government tomorrow and not miss a single one of them with that concept.
Please hang up and try again.
We can talk about the spies and cops as an example of what I'm talking about. But I want to bring back that screen grab for a second. This is tangential, and I will end with it. This is an idea I've been bitching about since I started writing about politics a long time ago. The recommendations of combining the FBI, the DEA, ATF, that was a great recommendation. I'll tell you why in just a few seconds. After 9/11, the federal beast didn't react by punishing the failures and improving the performance of existing intelligence and law enforcement departments. They instead created another massive bureaucracy to pile onto an already wildly overbloated bureaucracy. Across government, in every mission, we already have too many cooks in the kitchen. Adding more was not the answer. A few people, including yours truly, thought the Department of Homeland Security was an expensive and stupid mistake. These law enforcement and intelligence services are governed by an unhealthy professional jealousy. The 9/11 scumbags weren't successful because they were brilliant or even especially sneaky. They succeeded because of stovepiping of intelligence. The CIA knew we had known terrorists going in and out of this country for many months. They intentionally withheld that information from the FBI. Why? because that's our information. We own it. We can keep looking at it and hold it like a trophy, but we won't share it with the other kids. It would be a long time before the FBI got the information and one man was able to link it to the nutbags he was tracking. The FBI knew there were foreign religious nutbags in this country taking flying lessons. They were even warned these nuts weren't too interested in learning how to take off and land. One agent, a man named Harry Samet, was sending memos to anyone who would listen, asking for help in rolling up Zacarias Moussaoui. It seems from these memos, they were real close as of September 10th, 2001. The French, meanwhile, had been sounding alarm bells saying Moussaoui was a number 10 jihadist Looney Tune. They were more than happy to cooperate and let the FBI or CIA go to France and investigate Moussaoui. That, of course, never happened. After the towers fell, we created yet another law enforcement arm and yet another intelligence service made up of jealous bureaucrats. With all these cooks in the kitchen, we still have massive intel failures, whether because of stovepiping, I know from past life it still happens, or because we vacuum up too much data indiscriminately to process. So going back to that screenshot, yes, we need to shrink and then fold all federal law enforcement into an organization with one boss, the AG. We will have all the same specializations, but they will function as a single team. Then you do the same with NSA, CIA, DIH, and other intelligence services, all of whom will work for the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI. DNI and AG should sign a memorandum of understanding committing to the free exchange of information on subjects of overlapping purview. If the CIA learns a known criminal has entered the United States, they inform law enforcement immediately. If the new FBI learns domestic criminals have international ties, they inform the CIA. If caught stovepiping, the parties involved will be terminated with total loss of benefits. If death or damage occurs as a result of such activity, those responsible should face charges. That was a narrow example. In the meantime, this thinking can be applied to all areas of government. Fold the EPA into the Department of Interior. There's no reason to have a Commerce and a Treasury Department. Where you find redundancy, like the 47 jobs training programs, where people have been getting paid for years and never graduated a single trainee, make it one program or none. Follow the recommendations of my book about the IRS. I'll leave a footnote. And damn it, shut down the Department of Education.
Please tell a friend about the Free Zone Communiqué. We live and die with the share and subscribe buttons. Please use affiliate and sponsor buttons to support our work. Thank you very much for joining us today.